Hello. Kwai kwai nidam bak kuli payan. Ndelo zi Ashlee Bird. Nia odzi hila batawagok. Nudia we wombanaki. Hello, my friends. Welcome. My name is Ashlee Bird. I am Abenaki. I'm from the Middle Place, the Champlain Valley of Vermont, and I've been gifted the opportunity to do a land acknowledgement for you all and an opening prayer in my heritage language. So first, I would like to take a moment to bring our attention to the land that we are on today. We're gathered together on the traditional homelands of Native peoples, including the Haudenosaunee, the Miami, the Peoria, and particularly the Pokagon Band of Potawatomi. It's important to remember the peoples of this land who came before, the ones who are here in this time, and the ones to come after. Being in this place, we should all acknowledge the privilege it is to be a guest upon these lands, and to do our best to be here in a good way, in a way that honors the people who came before us, that builds relations with the people who are here now, and that creates a better future for the ones that will come after us. Kizida hondak tabestawi ndai miha wungan, milina maga wunganal, ondon wuzo wunganek, mikwaldam oda ninigon ods moon gana, ta ndelawon wuzo wunganal, questidora mziwi kagui, alamika wonda mziwi awani. Milina melik sen wongan, wawida hons wongan, wal tamawo wongan, tala ala mis wongan. Kitinuas nana walma, ndalak amig wazi, nkitiak ta nemahum nugak, nialats. And I will translate now. Creator, hear my prayer. Give us the gifts of life. Let us remember our history and our customs. Let us honor everything. Let us give thanks for everyone. Give us strength, wisdom, understanding, and gratitude. Great Spirit, take care of my family, my elders, and our ancestors. Let it be so. Thank you.
Good afternoon to everyone. My name is Scott Appleby. I am the Dean of the Keough School of Global Affairs here at the University of Notre Dame, and I'm the Ansari Institute for Global Engagement with Religion is part of our school. I'll come to that in a moment. I'm now seeing for the first time all of our friends here. I want to just stop and say hello to all of you. So just a brief welcome. I'm pleased to welcome you to an exploration of the experiences, insights, and guidance available to us in the world's religious and spiritual traditions. The occasion for our gathering, as you know, is the celebration of, quote, a collection of pages filled with marks representing speech sounds, that is, a book, which represents in vivid and uncompromising language the poignant, revelatory, and riveting stories, histories, and ancient, ever new wisdom of people of the land. In doing so, this text, sacred Sand Talk, exemplifies what we yearn to gain from respectful encounter with indigenous thinking, and indeed with Asian, Abrahamic, Baha'i, Sikh, secular, Catholic, Jewish, and other traditions of wisdom born of suffering, displacement, and patient perseverance in fidelity to the sacred. The exploration of encounter and the forging of responses to these dialogues and collaborations through teaching, further research, and scholarship, and ever-expanding networks of friends and colleagues, all of this is the mission of the Ansari Institute for Global Engagement with Religion, directed by my friend and colleague Mahan Mirza. My friend and colleague Mahan Mirza. I'm usually struck dumb by just mentioning his name. I'm sorry, that's what happened there. It's so overwhelming. As I was saying, our gratitude to Rafat, Zareen, and the entire Ansari family for making the pursuit of this mission possible is now happily extended to Rhonda and Sharif Nasr, whose generosity and dedication to learning have made possible this signature event of the Ansari Institute, the Nasr Book Prize Symposium on Religion and the World. As I mentioned, I'm Dean of the Keough School of Global Affairs. The excellence in all of its dimensions of the fact that the Ansari Institute is embedded in an interdisciplinary research, teaching, policy, and practice school within a Roman Catholic university, the excellence of all that may not be immediately apparent to all of you, unless, of course, you think about these things every day and night, which I hope you do not, that is what they pay us to do. Suffice it to say for now that we're a policy school at the Keough School, but with a mark of distinction which we hope makes a crucial difference, namely that we believe that policy and practice must be informed and perhaps corrected and even repurposed through an ongoing critical and respectful engagement with people who hear the cry of the earth, cherish the water, land, plants, and all creatures that inhabit our struggling but still dazzling planet. So, welcome. I think we are all in for a rich feast of ideas these 2 days, and I thank you for partaking of it with us. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott. Again, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mahan Mirza. I'm the Executive Director of the Ansari Institute. Welcome to the Nasr Book Prize Symposium, made possible by the generosity of Drs. Randa and Sharif Nasr, who are present with us today all the way from New Jersey. At this symposium, we are celebrating a remarkable book by Tyson Yunkaporta, Sand Talk: How Indigenous Thinking Can Save the World. You will hear more about the book throughout the afternoon and tomorrow, and we'll pay due tribute to the book and its author at the award dinner this evening. Our desire was to pick a book that was neither flawless nor unassailable, but rather a book that is generative for a particular kind of multi-faith conversation. As I welcome you to this symposium, let me elaborate a little more about that larger vision. The state of things in the world has been recently described in the following way. Our world is in big trouble. These are direct quotes. Our world is in big trouble. We are gridlocked in colossal global dysfunction. The future climate catastrophes are happening now. Our world is in peril and paralyzed. Cooperation and dialogue are the only path forward. No major global challenge can be solved by a coalition of the willing. We need a coalition of the world. These are not the words of Greta Thunberg, Code Pink, or some left-wing idealists. These are the words of Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations. He's sounding the alarm bells. I can't think of stronger language. So he's doing what he can with his bully pulpit. Our world is in big trouble. Inaugurated in 2018, the Rafat and Zorin Ansari Institute for Global Engagement with Religion takes these words seriously, as does the Keough School and the University of Notre Dame. And we are dedicated to doing our part. The Ansari Institute's strategic plan and copies of the plan are available for you outside. They're the small blue booklets. They're also available online on PDF in case you'd like to respect the trees. This is what the plan says, and I'm going to quote from it. Over the next 5 years, the Ansari Institute aims to become an important center for multi-faith engagement with the concept and practice of integral human development. While the term derives from Catholic social teachings, it represents a desire and capacity for human flourishing that is universal. As the Keough School notes, through our work, our cultural identities, our artistic creativity, our religious and spiritual practices, and our relationships with others around the world, our families, our communities, and all of humanity. The Ansari Institute's signature initiative, in effect, aims to provide a platform for public and generative conversation on the world as it should be, as envisioned and as contested by the diverse religious and wisdom traditions of the world. To that end, the Ansari Institute aims to cultivate a fellowship of faiths consisting of individuals whose faith is a centering feature of their identity. To borrow from Peter Oakes, the professor of modern Judaic studies at the University of Virginia and pioneer of the practice of scriptural reasoning, the fellowship will first and foremost be enjoyable for its own sake, consisting of prominent intellectuals whose work is informed by their faith and practitioners whose faith is informed by credible academic research. The fellowship, as it naturally matures, will be a body that responds in publicly significant ways to issues of common concern in local and global affairs, adding its voice among the prophetic voices of our time to guide the human family into a better future. End quote. So that's a section of our plan. And what I'd like to say is this book prize symposium and 3-day retreat that preceded it aims to put these words into practice. During the past 3 days before today, scholars who are part of this symposium have participated in a retreat along with leaders representing like-minded institutes in the United States and abroad toward cultivating the kind of fellowship that our plan envisions. In the conversations that follow, instead of seeing individuals on stage, individuals doing their thing, you will see a growing web of relationships. We asked a lot of our participants when we invited them to be with us for such a long time. But we wanted to do something more meaningful than a one-day public event. We wanted something deeper. The idea to go deep came from an essay, in large part inspired by an essay titled Footprints of the Soul, Uniting Spirit and Action in the World. That essay is by Carolyn T. Brown. She's a member of the steering committee for this book prize, and she will be in conversation with Tyson this evening, and that will serve as the keynote event at the dinner that we'll be having this evening. So we're delighted to have Carolyn with us, and her inspiration has driven so much of what we do. So much of what we do has been inspired by what she's given us. So in that essay, she speaks of her encounter in her undergraduate years with the concepts of yin and yang, which she obviously was doing when she majored in Chinese philosophy and literature. Yin and yang, I'm quoting for her essay now. Yin and yang, alternating modes of action and inaction that are mutually generating. At the furthest extreme of action, inaction arises. At the furthest extreme of inaction, action arises. Although Taoism falls far from my area of intellectual expertise, this notion articulates much of my lived experience. We are a culture that values the yang spirit, settling the wilderness, opening frontiers, conquering diseases, warring against poverty, getting ahead, progress and development. These metaphors of our national culture all resound with doing. One of the most striking and attractive features of the United States is the dynamism of the place. In the digital era, the expression 24/7 is the perfect metaphor for the frenetic pace at which we run and which we are encouraged to embrace as the ideal. Never a need to pause. There is nothing wrong with speed and action per se. That is part of the American spirit that has helped make us the prosperous nation that we are. The issue is balance. Where are the regenerative rhythms? Where are the regenerative yin rhythms? The time to sit in contemplative space, listen to the inner motions of our hearts, and hear the quiet pleadings of the world. End quote. Those were Carolyn's words. Tyson Yunkaporta gave us the opportunity to rediscover those rhythms. And we invite you all to enjoy the melody at the symposium. I'm grateful to the many Institute directors who accepted our invitation to join this program. You can find their names listed in the program booklet, and I'll mention some of them. Rabbi Or Rose, he's the director of the Miller Center for Interreligious Learning and Leadership at Hebrew College. Pamela K. Sari, director of the Asian American and Asian Resource and Cultural Center at Purdue University. Dr. Emily Cruz, assistant director of the Martin Marty Center for the Public Understanding of Religion, University of Chicago Divinity School. Mehmet Sarachoglu, director of the Center for Faith, Identity, and Globalization at the Rumi Forum in Washington, D.C. Reverend Stephen Avino, he's the executive director of the Parliament of the World's Religions. He and Dr. Miriam Renaud, who's the project director at the Global Ethics Initiative of the Parliament, they both accepted our invitation and were hoping to come. They couldn't make it, but we're happy that through this program we were able to make the connection. There's one individual, however, who I'd like you all to meet right now. Dr. Renee Hattar. Renee holds a PhD in Peace Studies from the University of Granada in Spain, and she is the director of the Royal Institute for Interfaith Dialogue in Amman, Jordan. She had a very long flight. The sun was up when she left, and the sun was up when she landed. She moved with the sun. She brought the light to us. So she came from the Mideast to the Midwest, and we're grateful she could join us. We're very interested in learning more about her work and delighted that she could be with us today. And so I've invited Renee to say a few words about both herself and her institute, and to honor you, especially since you've come so far away. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaban bikum. Please.
Hello, everyone. I'm usually invited to speak about our work, about the Institute, but whenever they tell me to speak about myself, I'm like, why? So I'll try to orient this to explain to you how I ended up in the Institute that I'm directing right now. Mahan was just explaining that I studied peace studies in Granada, Spain. And to tell you a little bit about my experience when it comes to religions and spirituality, and I was telling some of the friends we have here yesterday, that it's very hard for people to unlearn things. Teaching is easy, but unlearning? So whenever you say, I'm an Arab, all kind of stereotypes come to mind. You are Muslim, you are dark, you are, unfortunately, after 9/11, you might be a terrorist, so etc., etc. And when you go to Spain, you have another baggage, because we're still thinking 11th century Moors, conquista, reconquista, etc., etc. So to present yourself in a cathedral and have the communion, and then people look at you like, what is she doing? Why is a Muslim among us in the cathedral? And then you try to explain that although I'm Arab, but I'm Catholic, is out of this world. What? When did you convert? When did your family convert? And it's really funny, but this is exactly how our institute started. In the West, we're beginning to forget that Christianity actually started where I come from. So we are the ancestors of Jesus Christ. So when anybody asks us, when did you convert to Christianity, we say 2,000 years ago, or at least before you did. So this is where my journey started, because I had this conflict with my own identity. I was Christian in a Christian world or country, yet I wasn't as Christian. So where does that leave me? I was speaking a language that nobody spoke, or if they spoke to them, it was representative of a religion, of a war, of a history that nobody wanted. So basically related to violence. At the same time, I was in love with my culture, with my language, but also with my Muslim friends, because they formed part of my life, of my identity. I consider myself to be Arab, Christian, but I also embrace an Islamic culture where I come from, which does not change anything. So the question will always be, do you feel more Christian, more Arab, or more Jordanian? And to me, all at once. They all form part of my identity, and that's how I started reading in social science about hybrid identities. I'm also a musician, I'm also a woman. All of this forms part of my identity, so I cannot divide them. So the question that came to mind is that why do we need to be in one box, in one limited box? And why do we always need to have the same groups and enclose ourselves in the same group? So this is how I was thinking of joining my passion for music, for sacred music, and the peace studies I was trying to study, to do an introduction about Oriental Christianity, how important it is for us, and also the experience of interfaith dialogue that we actually live in Jordan and the area, where it was part of our lives to have so many different people of different religions living with us, especially the Muslims, and how we formed part of this culture. So why music? Not just because it's a passion, but because this is where, to me, there was one more step where we left religions and spoke of spirituality. Why do we need prayer in our lives? Do we need the sense of secure feeling, inner peace? The idea that a more almighty is taking care of us, especially when we feel lonesome, especially when we feel hurt. We always look for this feeling of a solution for all our problems, or an embrace, especially if we are alone, away from our families, or if we don't have families. So music to me was this step of trying to say a prayer, to feel that love, but also to transmit it. And I was yesterday talking to some of the colleagues about, with dialogue and music, it's very similar. In order to enter in harmony and really have a dialogue with the other, we need to listen. In today's world, it's hard to listen. You hear people and you want them to finish so that to make them hear what you want to say. But are we really listening? Is the other listening to us? Do I really respect what the other is saying? Or am I just waiting for them to finish? And of course, yeah, I respect that, but I don't agree. Disagreement shouldn't be a problem. The problem is how we approach the disagreement. So with music, there's the peaceful part, the inner peace, the respect to listen, because if I don't listen to you, I myself will not enter in harmony, and the whole project will collapse because there's audience listening to all of us. So if we all listen and enter in harmony, it's a win-win situation. If we don't, the whole project would go down. And this is how we also learn about solidarity, work in a team, in a group, etc. So I went back home to Jordan, and I was offered a job at the Royal Institute for Interfaith Studies, which started in 1994 by an idea and a concern of His Royal Highness Prince Al-Hassan bin Talal of Jordan, who thought that if the world continues to see Christianity as an Occidental religion, what will happen to all these Oriental Christians in our world who formed part of the history and the beautiful experience of all our Orient in our countries? At the same time, why can't we speak of our loving experience between Christians and Muslims rather than speaking of the violence that is all around the world and indicating fingers to all these religions? Crusades for the Christians, terrorism for the Muslims, conquista, reconquista, again and again and again. So then we started studying other religions, and research grew to study the traditions of wisdom, which you just mentioned, and there are many of them, and they all enrich our human experience. Until 9/11 changed the world, and we saw the need to go out of just researching and having conferences with the elite, with the academics and with the intellectual, and go to the grassroots. To go back to teach what dialogue actually means as a skill. Would human rights affect religions? Are they contradictory to religions? What about peace building in society? Are we just talking about the peace process between Palestine and Israel and all the negative connotations to this? Or are we talking about inner peace, peace in society, our role as citizens, and therefore speak about citizenship, etc., etc.? So we started all these trainings and programs, and today we have a range of programs that consider arts as a tool for dialogue and peace building. So we use different kinds of arts, especially with young people. We work with all different religions and backgrounds in Jordan, including refugees, which was a beautiful experience to all of us, to make them feel welcome, but also as an active citizen in society, regardless of having a national number or all the political rights we have as citizens. We still have our research programs and our publications. And we also have two important projects to us, or programs. One is the Visiting Scholar Program, where we receive scholars from all over the world who would like to write, research, or spend their sabbatical year in Jordan. But also the internship program, where we receive students from all over the world who would like to come, learn the language, and have the experience of living among Jordanians and Arab speakers. So this is in brief what we do at the Institute. I could speak for weeks if I remember all the activities. But this is just to give you an idea of what we do and how I landed here. And in that, I would just like to say a big thank you to all the beautiful friends of the Ansari Institute, because it's been a beautiful experience. Those who visited Jordan, like Charles and his family, or those who I met accidentally in Bologna and in Rome. So thank you so much for this beautiful invitation, Mahan and Rob. So this was absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Renee. It's a real honor to have you and so many of our distinguished guests who are here. Turning now to the symposium. If you look at the program booklet, we have 4 panels and 2 award dinners over the next 24 hours. At the panels, you will hear from scholars who have offered written responses to Sand Talk from a particular religious, philosophical, or secular tradition. At the retreat prior to the symposium, we had the opportunity to bring Sand Talk into intimate conversation with these various perspectives. What you will experience is a glimpse and an expansion of that engagement. In the evening, I will say more about the criteria that led to the selection of Sand Talk for the Nasr Book Prize. And tomorrow at lunch, we will announce a memorandum of understanding with Religions for Peace and honor with them 3 remarkable individuals for their lifetime of service. Among them is Mr. Marafi, who is with us today, Mr. and Mrs. Marafi, so welcome. We are also privileged to have with us Dr. Azza Karam, who is the General Secretary General for Religions for Peace, and she will be presiding over tomorrow's luncheon. Before I turn it over to Dr. Charles Powell to say a few words about the format of the panels, and to introduce the first panel. And I just want to pause here and say, let's have a round of applause for Charles Powell. I'll explain. He was just phenomenal in organizing the retreat, and he's literally aged, because it was his birthday 2 days ago during the retreat. So thanks for everything, Charles. But before I invite you up, I want to play a brief, I'm not going to put Tyson on the spot, unless you feel like you're on the spot when you're listening to yourself. But I'd like to play a brief audio clip of his book. It's just the actually opening section of it. So you get a sense both of the author and of the way he's getting into his subject matter. And this clip will last for about 5 minutes. And this will really bring you into the universe we're about to enter in this symposium. And after we hear that audio, Charles will take us forward to where we have to go next.
Sometimes I wonder if echidnas ever suffer from the same delusion that many humans do, that their species is the intelligent center of the universe. These Australian porcupines are smart enough. Their prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain used for complex reasoning and decision-making, is the biggest of any mammal in relation to body size. 50% of the echidna brain is used for some of the hardest kinds of thinking. In humans, it is not even 30%. In acknowledging this, I am paying respects to the sentient totemic entities all over Australia, where these echidnas follow the songlines of their creation. Maps of story, carrying knowledge along the lines of energy that manifest as law in the mind and land as one, webbed throughout the traditional lands of the first peoples. You might join me in paying respects to the people and other beings everywhere who keep the law of the land. The elders and traditional custodians of all the places where this book is written and read. The ancestors, the old people from every people now living on the continent currently known as Australia and its islands. Our non-human kin, including the various spiky species around the world, the porcupines and hedgehogs who snuffle in the earth for ants and then do God knows what when we're not looking. I don't know why Stephen Hawking and others have worried about superintelligent beings from other planets coming here and using their advanced knowledge to do to the world what industrial civilization has already done. Beings of higher intelligence are already here, always have been. They just haven't used their intelligence to destroy anything yet. Maybe they will if they tire of the incompetence of domesticated humans. All humans evolved within complex, land-based cultures over deep time to develop a brain with the capacity for over 100 trillion neural connections, of which we now only use a tiny fraction. Most of us have been displaced from those cultures of origin, a global diaspora of refugees, severed not only from land, but from the sheer genius that comes from belonging in symbiotic relation to it. In Aboriginal Australia, our elders tell us stories, ancient narratives to show us that if you don't move with the land will move you. There is nothing permanent about settlements and the civilizations that spawn them. Maybe the reason all the powerful instruments pointed at the sky have not yet been able to detect high-tech alien civilizations is that these unsustainable societies don't last long enough to leave a cosmic trace. An unsettling thought. Perhaps we need to revisit the brilliant thought paths of our Paleolithic ancestors and recover enough cognitive function to correct the impossible messes civilization has created before the echidnas decide to sack us all and take over as the custodial species of this planet. The stories that define our thinking today describe an eternal battle between good and evil, springing from an originating act of sin. But these terms are just metaphors for something more difficult to explain, a relatively recent demand that simplicity and order be imposed upon the complexity of creation, a demand sprouting from an ancient seed of narcissism that has flourished due to a new imbalance in human societies. There is a pattern to the universe and everything in it, and there are knowledge systems and traditions that follow this pattern to maintain balance, to keep the temptations of narcissism in check. But recent traditions have emerged that break down creation systems like a virus, infecting complex patterns with artificial simplicity, exercising a civilizing control over what some see as chaos. The Sumerians started it. The Romans perfected it. The Anglosphere inherited it. The world is now mired in it. The war between good and evil is in reality an imposition of stupidity and simplicity over wisdom and complexity.
We have to marinate on that. Tyson, the man in black. A beautiful voice and a beautiful mind, a complex mind. A statement that Tyson made over the weekend. You don't have to be in your place to be of your place. Selah. Think upon this. Yesterday, I do want to say Renee is just a beautiful person. Yesterday, we are doing a tour of the University of Notre Dame. And the young freshman is showing us many beautiful places. We are enjoying the walk as well as the conversation. And at first we thought we would not be able to go into the basilica and enjoy it because Mass was taking place. But we lingered. Finally, Mass came to an end, and we walked in. And we hang out in the basilica for 5-7 minutes. And then on our way out, Renee turns to me and she says, Charles, do you think they would mind if I said a prayer? And I paused for a moment and said, well, of course. Please, this is the basilica, say a prayer. And I thought no more of it. And then all of a sudden, it was no longer dead silence in the room. I hear this beautiful voice singing in, I believe, Aramaic. And it was a song, it was a prayer. And I saw the dear usher turn quickly with her eyes wide open, like, what is going on? Is something about to be out of control? And there was Renee, leaning up against the wall of the basilica and singing a prayer. I believe it was a prayer to Mary. And it was beautiful, and it was real. Thank you for that. It was an amazing opportunity to hear you. Hello, everyone. Good to see you, and good to hear you. I've had the privilege of working with the Ansari team for these past, for almost a year now, maybe just over a year, and working with the Ansari team particularly to bring this wonderful fellowship together. Moreover, I've had this opportunity to get to know some amazing scholars, some amazing authors, some amazing human beings. Prior to this symposium, our invited scholars and directors have been part of a retreat in Shipshawana. And I said to them, do you want a Shipshawana? And for those of us who live here, you know what that means. Do you want a Shipshawana? But none of them did. But they were in absolute awe, I think, at seeing the horse-drawn carriages and seeing the women wearing their bonnets and the young boys and girls playing in the schoolyards. I think that this particular time, this retreat, allowed us to deepen the conversation, and it allowed us to cultivate friendships that are lasting. During our retreat in Shipshawana, I opened one of our yarning sessions with a quote from Dr. Seuss. Dr. Seuss said, "Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better." It's not. The people you are going to hear from today care a whole awful lot. These professors, these scholars, these authors, but first and foremost, these wonderful human beings will enter into conversation with Tyson Yunkaporta's book, Sand Talk, How Indigenous Thinking Can Save the World. It is a catchy title, but it is a complicated conversation. Can indigenous thinking alone save the world? It is a conversation that must be had. For this conversation to move towards reaching its full potential, we must include many voices in the dialogue. Today, you will hear from an Aboriginal voice, a Native American voice. You will hear from Hindu, Buddhist, and Sikh voices. You will hear from the voice of one who teaches and lives according to the Baha'i faith. Moreover, you will hear from a Muslim. You will hear from a Catholic, a Jew, and a secularist. Together, these voices echo their faith traditions, and they issue a worldwide call to come together and learn, from one another. To quote another famous saying from Dr. Seuss, think left and think right, and think low and think high. Oh, the things you can think up if you only try. Over the course of these last few days, I have observed and I have participated in conversations that have caused each one of us to stop, to think, and to honestly reflect on sayings, thoughts, and actions that can potentially heal this planet we call home. The ecosystem is yearning for the great thinkers of humankind to build bridges of understanding, acceptable levels of trust and collaboration between humans and non-humans. Let us draw in the sand. Let us seize this fleeting moment to share words of wisdom, words of insight, and words of knowledge that can help us to restore and reconcile us to this land. In just a few moments, we will take the long journey to the next room, just over there. From 2 o'clock until 3 o'clock, you will hear from panel 1, Yarning with Indigenous Tradition. On this panel, you will hear from Dr. Ashlee Bird, whom you heard from a few moments ago, and Dr. Suzanne Abedian, whom I have practiced her name now for the last several days, and we finally, I think we are pronouncing it correct now, Suzanne Abedian. Dr. Tyson Newcomb-Porter will also be joining them. Dr. Ashlee Bird is our Native American participant and moderator for this panel. Dr. Bird's research focus is on Native American representation, visual sovereignty, and decolonial media, as well as digital media and popular culture. Dr. Bird is a Moreau postdoctoral fellow here at the University of Notre Dame. She earned her PhD from the University of California, Davis. And she will be joined by Dr. Suzanne Abedian. Dr. Abedian is a leadership consultant and coach, guiding individuals and communities from collective trauma towards cultural renewal, enhancing resilience and adaptive capabilities. Dr. Abedian holds a PhD in political economy and government from Harvard University. Both Ashlee and Suzanne are incredibly thoughtful, caring, loving, and insightful human beings. They are also activists. They not only talk about the need for change, they foster conversations that lead to change. These past few days, we have shared many experiences together, from enjoying way too much food, yes, Suzanne? To engaging in very meaningful dialogue on how indigenous thinking can save the world. When we go next door and begin the first panel of the symposium, I will not be introducing them. Instead, they will just simply dive directly into this very important conversation. Dear Ashlee and Suzanne, will you please stand for just a moment so the audience can see you, and thank you both for being here. Thank you. After the panel from 3 until 3:30, we will have a break. Snacks will be provided in the foyer area. And then we'll convene at 3:30, and the panel will go for 90 minutes. Panel 2 will be engaging with Asian traditions. And in this panel, you will hear perspectives from Chinese philosophy, Hinduism, Buddhism, and Sikhism. And then we'll have about an hour break and come back together at 7 o'clock for our award dinner this evening. And the man in black will be with us once again. I just have to say it. Hello, I'm Johnny Cash. And this man is like the Ring of Fire. Get to know him. Experience Tyson while he is here with us. And then on Monday, October 3rd, we'll come back together for breakfast, 8 to 8:45, and then 9 to 10:30 we'll have panel 3, and here we will have conversations with the Baha'i, Sikh, and secular traditions. And then from 11 until 12:30, our panel 4 will enter into dialogue with the Abrahamic traditions, so you'll hear from Islamic, Catholic, and Jewish. And then from 12:45 until 2 o'clock tomorrow, we will have our Religions for Peace Award luncheon, and as Dr. Scott Appleby and Dr. Mahan Mirza have already mentioned, we are very honored to have Dr. Azza Karam with us. Dr. Karam is Secretary General for Religions for Peace International, and she is wearing this fabulous red coat to my right, her power coat, her security coat. Wonderful person as well, and we are so glad that you are here with us. Once again, thank you for being part of this conversation. And since I began with a quote from Dr. Seuss, I would like to end with a quote from Dr. Seuss. Dr. Seuss said, "So be sure when you step with care and great tact, and remember that life is a great balancing act." Thank you for being here.